To control costs, it's essential to know how much funding the project has already used and assess whether changes to the original budget are necessary. This is where the forecasting technique comes in. Forecasting helps project managers calculate accurate estimates of cost for future activities that have not yet been completed based on current work performance and cost information. Forecasting uses a value called the estimate at completion, or EAC. This is an estimate of the total cost to complete the project based on what it has cost so far and on a forecast of what remaining work will cost. Typically, the EAC includes the actual costs incurred for work completed, plus an estimate to complete, or ETC, for the remaining work. Another important value used in forecasting is the budget at completion, or BAC. The BAC is the total planned cost for the project. In other words, it's the total approved budget for completing all scheduled activities. A project manager should develop a forecasted EAC if the BAC changes during the execution of the project. It's important to determine a project's EAC because this gives you a more realistic idea of future project performance than the BAC. The EAC can help you identify areas where tighter cost control might be necessary based on how you know a project is likely to perform instead of on how you planned it should perform at the outset. There are a number of ways you can calculate the EAC. The most common and detailed EAC forecasting approach is the bottom-up. To calculate a bottom-up EAC, you start by recording the actual costs incurred so far for work packages in the work breakdown structure. Based on what you know about costs, you then estimate the cost of work packages still to be completed. Finally, you aggregate the known and estimated costs at each higher level up to a total for the project. So the bottom-up EAC for a project is the sum of actual costs incurred so far, plus the project manager's bottom-up ETC, the estimated costs of the work packages still to be completed. Remember that calculating the bottom-up EAC involves adding actual costs incurred so far to a bottom-up ETC, which you determine for each work package in the work breakdown structure, and then aggregate up to project level. In this case, the AC so far is $725,000. The project manager has already calculated the bottom-up ETC as $65,000. So to determine the EAC, the project manager adds these two values. This results in a bottom-up EAC value of $790,000. It represents the estimate of what the entire project will have cost by its completion. There is another way to calculate the EAC. If you expect a project to continue having the same cost performance as it has shown to date, you can calculate the EAC based on its cumulative CPI, the average of the project's CPI values to date. To do this, you divide the project's BAC by its cumulative CPI. If project costs so far were exactly in line with the cost baseline, the CPI would be a value of 1, so the EAC is the same as the project's BAC. With a cumulative CPI of 0.97, it's clear that the project is performing slightly worse than planned. The manager has reason to assume this trend will continue. To calculate the EAC for the project based on the assumption that the project's cost performance won't change, the manager divides the BAC of $750,000 by the cumulative CPI value of 0.97. This gives an EAC of $773,196. Another useful tool for controlling costs is the Two Complete Performance Index, or TCPI. The TCPI compares the work left to be done to the money left in the budget. It indicates what cost performance has to be achieved on remaining work if a project is to meet a financial goal. For example, say the total budget for your project is $620,000. Halfway through the project, you've already spent $400,000. If spending continues at the current rate, you're going to be way over budget. Calculating the TCPI allows you to establish a new target cost performance that you must reach if you are to meet your budget. If the TCPI is greater than 1, it means you have more work left than money left. There are two TCPI formulas. If you want to know the cost performance that must be achieved for a project to complete within the original planned budget, the BAC, you first subtract the EV from the BAC. Then you divide this value by the BAC minus the AC incurred for the work done so far. A result greater than 1 indicates that future cost performance needs to be better than planned, whereas a figure less than 1 indicates that it may be less than planned. It may be that you've taken corrective action by updating the cost baseline from the original BAC to a new estimate at completion, or EAC. To base the TCPI on the EAC, you use a similar formula. However, now you subtract the AC incurred for work done so far from the EAC instead of from the BAC. In summary, to control cost, it's essential to know how much funding the project has already used and assess whether changes to the original budget are necessary. Forecasting formulas include the Estimate at Completion, or EAC, and the To Complete Performance Index, or TCPI.